Chris Kendall from the rawadvantage.com, registered holistic nutritionist, raw food lifestyle coach, and raw chef. Today I have the pleasure of having Ronnie Smith on with me live. He is the author of The Lazy Man's Guide to Success with Raw Food, as well as Raw Vegan Myths Part 1 and 2, and the creator of the UK Fruit Festival. Together we have over 30 years raw experience between us, and we're going into detoxification, cleansing, and purity myths within the raw food movement. So I do want to let you guys know right from the beginning that this isn't towards any individuals or anything at all. We are just talking about the ideas and the methodologies behind this, what we have personally seen, what we've learned from people who've been doing this for a heck of a lot longer than us, and just want to go into this, have a nice open communication. So I'm going to invite Ronnie in here. And welcome. Ronnie, what's going on, brother?
Hi, Chris. I'm wearing the bathrobe for you.
Nice. Awesome. I'm so stoked you are. I was actually going to say, I hope that you do wear it, but I didn't want to put any pressure on the bathrobe, you know? Are you serving up some mangoes for us too?
Sorry, I don't have any mangoes, but I've got some grapes, but they're not that exciting. But
No.
no, it's good to hear from you. Good to speak with you, and thank you everyone who's joining us. And hopefully we have a good, we have something to say that's of help to people.
Hopefully, yeah, I hope so too, man. Absolutely. And I mean, before we even get into this, I just want to also acknowledge you and all you do for the raw food community, putting together the UK Fruit Festival since, was it 2015 or 14?
2014.
14 for the first one, which I feel super blessed to be a part of multiple times. And also just the Fruity Fridays you put together, which is really dang awesome. How long have you been doing that?
We've been doing that a couple of years now.
Yeah.
I think nearly a couple of years. But it started off just discussions, and then we started to have people come on and speak. So it's quite fun, I think.
Yeah, and that's free to join live, hey? But then you can also enter as a member and get past shows and stuff, since you've had so many shows over the years.
That's right, yeah, and all the Fruit Fest archive stuff from the Fruit Festival as well. So that's pretty cool, I think.
That's super badass, man. So where can people learn about that before we even get into this fun topic?
Fruitfest.co.uk. Yeah. That's got all the links on the front page. There's little pictures, and you can find all of those things. But we have the Love Fruit podcast and stuff. So try and put out some stuff there for everyone, and create a bit of community and get some information out there. We've not done an amazing job at that. We've not got a huge audience or whatever, but but we've done something hopefully. And
absolutely,
the Fruit Festival, creating the space for people to come, that's kind of been one of the main focuses, and that's been a big thing that I've been working on for a number of years. So that's been good. That's worked out, and that'll be good this year as well. So looking forward to that.
Heck yeah. And this year's festival, is it already filled up, or is there some spots if anyone's kind of hankering to come out there?
There's still some spots, but we could just stop it now. We've got more people than we had last year. We're pretty full, but we'll probably take on another 5 people or something. It won't be that many more tickets that we've got left, but we have some space. Yeah.
There we go. Well, you guys heard it here first, so go check that out if you guys are interested. I highly, highly recommend it. So we're getting into a little bit of a topic that has some hot buttons and a little bit of controversy and some different viewpoints within the raw food movement for sure. And I always really like chatting with you about this kind of stuff, because you're not afraid to share what you feel, what you've learned and what you've experienced and seen throughout the movement, and your books that go into the myths that we've had a couple interviews on, which I'll put in the show notes so you guys can see some more interviews I've done with Ronnie, are always super, super fun. But getting into this, we're talking about detox, cleansing, purity. Those can be separated into 3 separate things. And that's kind of how I'd like to start this here, is going into just the thought of detox and detoxification and the bodily processes associated with that. For example, I've heard people kind of say that eating greens stops detox, and that you can only detox on fruit, for example. Or I've heard people even say that you start the lifestyle by doing a detox plan, and then you stop and you start building, and you're not even detoxing anymore. Like, you just have a section of time that you're detoxing, and then you're just into normal living. Is there any of that you'd like to kind of go into and unpack and start our road with this conversation?
Yeah, and actually the first thing I wanted to say, Chris, is that uh, I don't know how you look at it, but when I'm putting out information or any kind of message, I'm thinking of it from the perspective of the festival, right?
Mm.
And so I'm thinking of this group of people coming to the event. A lot of them are very new to all this,
Yeah.
and a lot of them are experimenting, trying something out, maybe for the first time. Maybe they're just on the start of their health journey.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about what is the best, effective, and also, most importantly, safest information for these people, because um, unfortunately, there are, even though this is a natural diet and lifestyle and healthy and everything, there really should be no risk to it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are there are things that have happened in this movement and things attached to the raw food movement and ideas, mindsets, ways of looking at life, ways of looking at health that to me have led to people actually going backwards in their health, or sometimes even like fatal things happening or terrible injury to them. And that is something that I personally think is something that we should be avoiding as much as possible. And if we're putting out information, especially broadcasting that to a kind of random group of people, I think we need to be careful about the effect. And because you and me have been to the events multiple times, have met people that are long term, have seen the mistakes people make with our own eyes,
Yeah.
have seen people say something online and then the reality of it might be different offline.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of that. And I think a lot of people get influenced by ideas, thoughts that aren't really real, that don't really work for people, that none of the long-term people are doing. And I just think that that's a worry to me. So I just want to say that I understand that everyone's got their own journey and their own thing that they like and the way they want to do it and the stuff they want to do. And that might work for you, or it might be safe for you to do that. But I'm always thinking about it as, what about the 1 in 100 person,
Yeah.
the 1 in 1,000 person that takes that information or that message and it becomes harmful to them? So I'm always thinking about that, and there's no need for the message to be so extreme or practices to be so extreme that they could actually set people back or be harmful. I'd like to hear you. Is that the way you think about it, or do you?
It
I'm
depends
interested.
upon the context, right? It
Yeah.
depends. You know, like in my general message, I like to try and give people the most concise, you know, based in science as well as personal experience and nature, kind of holistic way to achieve the maximal results. Not necessarily in the shortest period of time, but in the most streamlined as well as balanced way possible. And there's going to be some generalities to that, but within that, it allows for individualization when you're talking to people one on one, right? So I like to definitely, you know, consider everyone, but at the same time, focus on what is going to bring the benefits to the absolute largest number of people, you know, dependent
Yeah.
upon or independent upon of their emotional state or their knowledge in this or where they're at in the beginning.
Yeah, and I just, the other thing I want to say is this is the way I think about detox.
Mm.
I'm interested in a couple of things. One is there's certain things that people get really interested in. And I've noticed this at the events and also online, is sometimes, for example, you'd have a whole group of talks at a festival, maybe 10 talks, 20 talks, and you're watching the audience. And then there's one talk and the room's
Everyone's there.
full and there's loads of people there.
Yeah.
And you're like, everyone's on the edge of their seat and you're like, why are people so interested in this particular thing? But that other thing that I thought was more useful to them, like there was less people at that talk or whatever.
Yeah.
So I've been interested in that. And I think with detox, it grabs a lot of attention for people.
Yeah.
Like it's very interesting to people. And I believe there's part of it that goes back to kind of an evolutionary thing where, and I think it actually goes back more to like parasites.
Mm.
And there's people that talk about parasites as well a lot in the raw food community. But I think there is a genuine vulnerability for all animals really, but humans, to being infected by parasites and having things inside us and having things crawling around or whatever it was, you know, and that's part of our grooming behavior and part of why we're so careful with the food we eat. And so I'm always interested in that psychology, that evolution part of it. Like, why is it that we get caught up in that idea of like there's something sort of bad inside you that you need to get out? You know,
Yeah.
I'm interested in that.
Yeah, that's cool.
I don't know about you, but I sometimes come across these videos online that's like someone taking what do you call it, like bot flies out of a squirrel or something like that, like
Yeah.
parasites in a squirrel or a monkey, and they're like taking them out. There's something like quite satisfying about watching that for some reason. But
It's like the
so I
pimple
think there's
popper.
something in, yeah, and I think also like we have a natural inbuilt thing to stay away from, you know, if you came across, ironically, a dead body of an animal or a wound, like someone else had a cut, you have an instinct to stay away from that. And it's an inbuilt thing to stay away from potential infection, to stay away from parasites, to stay away from things that are very dangerous to us. And I think that that feeling is kind of what gets used or translated or added into the whole conversation. That's the emotional driver behind it in a way, I think.
Yeah.
So when someone, and I was interviewing someone recently, and he used almost all the things that I don't really agree with, right? The kind of buzzwords of detox.
Yeah.
He used every single thing, and I was just like, I really don't like I wasn't going to just totally argue with him because that wasn't the point of the interview, but I was like, it was like bingo. I don't know if you play that in Canada, but like,
yeah.
you know,
You're
mucoid
shouting
plaque,
bingo, blackout bingo.
yeah, the detox bingo, like breatharian, supplements, mucoid plaque, herbs, colonics, whatever. So, and there's something about people feeling dirty, people feeling impure, and that also gets added onto emotional, where people feel as a person they are impure. Some people feel like that because of things that have happened in their past. They feel that there's something bad inside them, emotionally or whatever, spiritually or whatever. And so some people love this detox thing because they feel like this is going to get all this out. Yeah. You know, there's some, and ironically, I think it can become quite toxic when people feel there's all this stuff they're trying to get out, need to get out more, and they're going to greater and greater extremes.
Yeah, never quite clean enough, never pure enough.
Yes, and we've seen that be dangerous and be fatal. Like, and it's terrible. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, starting from the beginning, I think that you know, when people are looking for health and when they're like on the opposite extreme, they're more likely to fall for anything, and they're the most likely to fall for the biggest, shiniest carrot there is. And you know, extreme makeovers and extreme protocols often appeal the most to people that may have some desperation in them. You know, they're the easiest to hoodwink and be sold things and kits and cleanses and stuff. And so I think, to me, that is one aspect. But then, of course, also, as you mentioned, like the, you know, philosophy, upbringing, you know, emotional things going on in their life, all of those things, I think, also have a huge impact on which direction somebody's going to be kind of driven to. But, you know, the oldest play in the book is, you know, problem, product, solution, right? Or problem, solution, product, right? And it is tough in a natural health world if you don't really have products. You just have information, and it's a lot easier to grab attention with, you know, really flashy kind of products and stuff like that, right? So I think there's a bit of a mix of all of those things coming together. And as I said in the beginning as well, this isn't about anyone, and this isn't saying any way is necessarily bad or wrong, right? Just instead sharing different views on different ways of looking at things.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not at anyone, because it's such a common. There's so many people that are saying a lot of this stuff.
For sure.
And
the absolute vast majority, I'm sure, have the absolute 100% best intentions, because that's part of their story, what they've found to work, what they've learned. And so it's all from very good places, or at least you'd hope the most of it.
And I've sometimes wondered, well, maybe it's okay because it brings people in, but I tend to not think that. I think that basically myself and you and a number of other people had the fortune of coming into the raw foods community and idea and having Doug Graham as like one of our main mentors, one of our main
Absolutely.
teachers.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't tolerate that kind of thinking. He wouldn't tolerate those kind of ideas, that kind of question. The way he dealt with those questions was like, he never allowed any kind of thought about that. I don't know if you agree, but like he never allowed for any kind of woolly or fuzzy or kind of like, yeah, maybe that works. Or no, you just say, no, this is how the body works. I'm just going to explain this.
Yeah.
So in terms of detoxification as a physical process, from what I've learned from Doug, and we were speaking about this the other day, he said to me, well, you're never going to get clean because your body is constantly both creating toxic waste and trying to get rid of it constantly all the time. It's a constantly ongoing process.
Yeah.
And then he said, and if you go and exercise, you're going to end up building up even more toxins during the exercise process, which I didn't even understand that, but that's what he was informing me about. So some people are saying like they're going to go and exercise and pump their lymphatic system, but that's creating even more toxins.
It's a bit of both always, right? It's like there's always the natural check and balance within our body, but then what we put in makes a difference.
And some people might get freaked out by that. Like, well, what do I do then? Do I just not exercise or just not do anything? It's like, no, I think you need to think of it like the human body and every animal and every living thing is an incredibly complex system of lots of inputs and outputs and stuff going on. And if you think about a big company, like a major company, they bring in a lot of money, but they waste loads of money, right? They make loads of mistakes. They have corruption, they have problems, they try products that don't work and
still trying to
do all sorts of things. It doesn't work, yeah. But they just do enough to keep going. Like they make enough money, they make enough of a profit or whatever. And I think that's the way to look at it a bit more. It's like, as long as we're ahead enough to be healthy and to feel good, we don't need to worry too much about doing anything specific to try and stimulate or speed up detox processes. And going back into old-fashioned, ancient, natural hygiene philosophy kind of ideas would be, which taught by Doug and Roz and many others, but goes back in many years. There's nothing you can do to speed up detox. There's nothing you can do to speed up the systems of the body because they are going at the absolute fastest rate that they can, as far as my understanding of it. It's not like your body is like this room full of guys on a building site who are kind of all taking a rest, and you come along and, hey guys, come on, get going, right? No, it's like they are like your body is working all the time at its capacity, I believe. That's how I like to see my body. So there's an unhealthy relationship with the body that comes from detox, where we think we've got this unreliable body that's like sitting about, you eat some greens or some fat and it just goes, I'm not going to detox anymore. We're just going to pile up. And it's not like that. My understanding is, your heart is beating the best it can. Your lungs are doing the best. We as people, we don't always do our best in terms of how much work I could have done today, how much exercise or whatever. We don't do our best all the time with those things. But in terms of our body's cells, like they're basically just doing what they're meant to do all the time. And that's a better relationship, I think. So when we unpack this in this conversation, there's so many negatives to me about the detox mindset. It's a bad relationship with the body. It's inaccurate sort of scientific information. It leads to people trying a diet style that doesn't really work long term. It leads to people lifestyle. And it leads to people to do practices that don't really work. And there's so many bad things. One thing I would say, and I'd be interested in your experiences on this, there is definitely a feeling of detox. When we go raw, when we improve our diet, when we take stuff out of your diet, it's not good for us, you will feel cleaner for a time. You will feel like the cleanse happens. You will feel rejuvenated. You do feel a feeling of cleanliness in a sense, of physical cleanliness. You smell better. Your skin is better. All these things. But we shouldn't really get too caught up in that, I think. But what's your kind of experiences with that?
Well, I do think it can be a mind trap, and kind of going back to kind of that wide net, it's like, yeah, there's going to be some people that get into a real mind trap with that and go down rabbit holes and end up non-recognizable, or completely out the other end, right? But then there are going to be some people that, they float along with it pretty well, right? But there's once again a lot to unpack there, and I think you really hit the nail on the head as well, just kind of going into detoxification being something that happens all the time, right? It's not like we do a detox diet, we detox, and then we're done. Our body's always going to do that to the best of its ability, dependent upon the nutrients and the nutrient sufficiency that we provide our body. And I like to mention that because I learned a lot under Dr. Doug Graham. He's definitely my number one mentor, good friend, and feel blessed to be a colleague of his in certain endeavors and stuff like that. And I've also had the pleasure of learning from Dr. Rick and Karen Dina, who are very scholastic as well, and going through their program and really also science driven. And they often talk about how greens are really important for detoxification phases 1 and 2 in liver detoxification. So a lot of people saying like, oh, you just eat fruit and greens slow it down, is actually the opposite, where if you are just eating fruit, you're actually going to notice more detoxification symptoms because you're going to have stuff circulating instead of being binded and made less intensive on the body and able to be pulled out of the body. So I mean, that's one really big thing. And it's like, our detoxification is incumbent upon our vitality as well. So if we're really vital, then we're going to be able to detoxify maybe at a faster rate, but not necessarily faster, meaning that it's like running faster. It's just we're not dealing with the other stuff that otherwise could bog down some of our vitality. Like if we're really injured or healing from a surgery, it's going to be a lot of energy going towards that as well, and repairs, instead of peeling back the onion layers of detoxification. But
that's great points.
It's really, really wild though, right? Because it is made to seem in this movement like you have to start a detox, and faster isn't always better. The slow and steady wins the race tortoise kind of example. I see that play out time and time again. The people that create a established lifestyle rather than go on really short-term things, those are usually the people that stumble and make a big deal of their stumbles more so than those who establish a lifestyle and go in a clear direction.
Oh yeah, and this is getting into like juice cleanse, fasting. It's interesting because I'm less and less keen on putting out fasting. Like, we don't really have fasting at the festival, or we don't talk about it. We certainly don't encourage people to do it at the festival, but we don't. I know Doug is a fasting practitioner, but I don't really encourage him to talk about it. He still does talk about it a little bit, but I don't really want it to be a big thing on the thing, because I tell you what happened, and this is what I'm talking about with people getting so fascinated by certain things. You could give an excellent presentation on how to do the diet, change your lifestyle, what's really going to impact a person long term, and you can go into that in detail. Someone else gives a talk on fasting, and I'm telling you that talk will be more full. The people will be more interested. There'll be more questions about the fasting. Yeah. And the amount of times I've heard the great stories about fasting. I've done a short-term fast, never done a long-term fast, and I'm not against the idea. Once again, for myself, for people that are experienced, for people that know what they're doing, for people that don't have a background of eating disorders, for people that understand the whole process, cool. Yeah. No worries really. But because I'm putting out a message to an audience that I don't know their background, I don't know everything about them and everything, I'm thinking of the people that take that message of fasting and end up fasting all the time, fasting on their own. Any problem comes up, they're fasting. Fast once a week, fast twice a week. And once again, it comes back to this feeling of like, I'm not good enough, I'm too dirty inside, something's bad, I'm getting something out. Like, there's an aspect of this, and there is this thing of like, there's this chasing this extra level of health. Like, I did my 30-day fast, but I've still not quite got. I think I need to do another one
Yeah.
to really get beyond the issue and whatever it is. And the reason that I'm not keen on promoting fasting a lot anymore is that I've seen a lot of people do it and not develop a long-term lifestyle that works for them.
Yeah.
Now, my mum has never done a water fast, never done a day of a water fast as far as I know,
Yeah.
and she isn't a raw vegan.
Yeah.
But she came to the UK Fruit Fest years ago and she made long-term changes to her diet and lifestyle that led her to losing weight, getting rid of headaches that she had long-term. She went vegan, she went plant-based, she eats low-fat, she has a simpler diet, but she never fully went raw or is still kind of skeptical about that to some degree. But she made long-term changes to her diet, and that's really made an impact on her life.
Yeah.
I've known other people that have done more fasting, more juice cleansing, ate more exotic fruits, been to all the great places and retreats and whatever, water fast, and they still eat junk. And you're like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like, what is the point? Like, and if someone's still got type 2 diabetes 15 years after learning this information, you're like, there's something majorly wrong here. The jumping to these extremes is and I think there's something in it, Chris, as well, where people come into this movement and they see it as a community, and they misunderstand the idea that what they should be trying to do is impress, leaders like yourself by, look how many days I can go juice cleansing or fasting, or look how extreme I can do. And the absolute worst end of that is the most extreme stuff, which is the people trying to be breatharians and doing dry fasting, and that's incredibly harmful as far as I've noticed or seen or experienced. So it's, to me, this message and this community and everything, it needs to get back to a more powerful message of what I learned from you as a mentor when I saw you online first and then met you in real life, which was Chris is leading an active life, a fun life. He is living his life the way he wants, and he doesn't let this get in the way, and he's having fun with it, and he doesn't have these weird fears and you were living a fun, active life. You were showing us that. You were sharing that.
Yeah.
And it was clear in your demeanor, in your physicality and everything. And, I'm glad that I came across people like that, people like yourself, rather than people who were saying, let's sit in the house for 9 months, quit your job, maybe go to a beach somewhere and just, detox as much as possible, eat 500 calories a day, dry fast at some point, once you're spiritually ready to dry fast, and kind of attaching it all to like weird spiritual stuff as well, which isn't really that relevant. So I think that, I don't know, these are all thoughts that are coming at me. It's the same thing again, just getting back to a safe, powerful message. And these extremes, I just want to share a message with everyone. I don't want to say impressed, like, you don't have to impress anyone. This is a journey for you, for your personal health. If we meet you at an event or in real life, we want to share time with you as another person. It's great if you have a similar diet, but it doesn't matter if you've done a 30-day water fast or a 90-day juice cleanse or however many days raw or whatever. We're trying to live good, healthy lives, and yes, the diet is, I believe diet is incredibly important, but no one has to do anything like extreme or prove anything.
No, absolutely. And I mean, there's obviously many roads people have taken and many ways to get, but like we're talking about here, we're trying to share our experience in what brings the most streamlined, kind of least sidetracking kind of way to create a healthy lifestyle, right? And I think something that kind of has been impressed upon me from what all you've shared as well is that, like, I do believe that everything can have its time and place, fasting, juicing, mono eating, fancier food, slipping back on the diet. I think all of those things can be very valuable experiences, but they can work better for us or they can work against us depending upon our mindset that we're coming in with, right? So if we're coming into fasting or we're coming into juicing thinking I need to do this because I am X, Y, or Z, or coming from a fear mindset, like I'm not going to survive if I don't do this, or any kind of a lack mentality, is going to be a completely different experience than if we come into it from a place of sufficiency and self-love and saying, I'm choosing this because I feel amazing and I know this is going to feel amazing and help nourish me and I have a really clear direction, and that said, I mean, I'm on the same boat as you. When someone's new to the lifestyle, in general, I like to impress upon the benefits of really, again, learning a lifestyle, right? Of creating abundant sufficiency, of learning a way of eating and living that you can do forever and feel amazing with,
Yes.
and continually build health, and also at the same time detoxify, but at a rate that isn't necessarily going to make you pull your hair out and have an emotional conundrum, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then from there, if there are certain things that just aren't clearing up, that's once you've gotten to that nutritional sufficiency, once you have that background of lifestyle where you feel like this is what I'm doing, I'm just breathing and I'm eating raw food, then we go deeper into those protocols with people who have experience, firsthand experience, to get their insights, their intuition, and their guidance, instead
Yep.
of necessarily just going into, each extreme as fast as you can. And I think that's a big part of it, Ronnie, too, is just people see what they don't have and they want it right now. They feel what they feel and they're like, I want to be there instantly. And this guy said if I piss and drink it and I dry fast otherwise and I only eat this one food for 90 days, then I'm gonna get it. And sure, in some ways that may bring in some of those practices, I'm not gonna single out each one, may help in some ways, but it also can cause major imbalances, physically, mentally, emotionally, depending on where that person is at before, their history, their mindset, and like you said, if they have eating disorder history, or if they have any kind of mental disorder history or anything like that, right? So establishing a
Yes.
firm bedrock, I think, is always very, very beneficial.
Yes. I mean, to be honest, one of my favorite times on this diet, I did 114 days or something where I just ate mangoes in Thailand,
Yeah,
and
that's
I
when you were wearing
absolutely
the house
loved
coat, wasn't
it.
it? Were you
What's
wearing the
that?
house coat for that?
What's that?
Was that during the house coat wearing picture?
That would have been just. I just came home then. Yeah. I just came home after that. But I never wanted to do that. It wasn't something in my mind. I was like, I'd love to do a long term, fruit only. I'd never done. I'd been like 8 years on a raw vegan lifestyle. I'd never done 1 day mono island. Right. I'd
Yeah.
never done that, and wasn't particularly interested. And for a number of different reasons, it came together. And actually, my girlfriend at the time wanted to do 3 days on mangoes, and I was kind of like, okay, let's do 3 days on mangoes. And I really enjoyed it. I was like, I'm going to keep this going. This is so simple. This is like nice and fits in with my lifestyle. It's really easy for me to figure out and everything in terms of how much, because I was trying to lose a little bit of weight as well. So I knew how much I was eating if I was just eating mangoes.
Yeah.
So, but I think she had this feeling like, you're going to really cleanse, you're going to really detox here. I'm like, I've been on this lifestyle 8 years. Like, I'm not going to, there's not this other level above if you just do fruit, or if you just, there's not really much left to experience, but I loved it. But
Yeah.
my hesitancy with doing stuff like that is I don't want to influence other people to do stuff like that when they're not really in a good headspace for it, or the right way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
It was great for me personally. I would do it again. I would like to do that all the time. I actually really loved it, but it's not right for a lot of people, and it'll be this thing of like, what's next?
Yeah.
And this is the thing I find with the raw food diet. Is like, once you've got your diet pretty much in a good space, raw vegan, especially raw vegan, but even like somewhere close to that, there's not much left to do diet wise. Like, you can move on to other things in your life. I think you've kind of completed the game of diet in a sense, right? You've went through the journey. You've found raw vegan diet. I don't know if there's any. I can't see anything better than eating a fruit-based diet, right?
Yeah.
So you can tinker around with it. There's things you can maybe improve, all that stuff. And yeah, you'll keep on doing that. But the idea that you should try and shoot for the next level, like there's going to be some huge awakening on the other side. And this is where I find with people, like, okay, so now I'm on and then weirdly, a lot of them aren't even established in a raw vegan diet for a long time yet. And they jump into, okay, now I'm going to do liquidarian. Now I'm going to do, and it becomes this like, I want to jump to the next thing. They've not really got established on vegan, plant-based, whole foods. Like, they've not got, don't eat processed foods. They've not got into that level yet. They've done a week or a little while raw. They want to jump onto the next thing straight away. And they they try and do liquidarian. And then this has happened to some people where they start saying, you know, I've not been eating much or whatever, and someone might go, maybe you're a breatharian. And they're like, oh yeah, maybe I am a breatharian. And like, this is how some people end up calling themselves breatharians, because someone else goes, oh, you don't seem to be eating much, you must be a breatharian. They're like, yeah, that sounds good to me. And and this idea of shooting for the next thing, it's like, I've known people that wanted to be a breatharian, they're still eating junk food. I'm like, how about you get onto the first step? Yeah. And I mean, like, they're eating junk food all the time. Like, get on the first step of the ladder. Like, don't be trying to shoot for some mystical like thing that no one's actually doing. So someone in the comments, by the way, said, what about intermittent fasting? And I once again, I give you a Doug Graham answer, to be honest, with a lot of stuff that I say. Like, I take a lot from Doug's mindset. Yeah, me too. And he basically said, you know, I think he said something like, if you're eating a diet full of bad food and food that's not healthy for you, maybe it makes sense for you to do intermittent fasting. When you're eating fruit, you know, it's digesting so effortlessly. Yeah. Like, the idea that you need this huge space of time to digest fruit, like fruit goes into your stomach, it takes about 20-30 minutes or something in your stomach, it passes through, you know, you've got enzymes working on it, it goes through the digestive system nice and easy, comes out the other end really easy, like it's mush in your mouth already. Like, it's not effort.
Rubbing your skin almost.
Yeah, I mean, if you're putting meat and all this stuff into your stomach, right? Your stomach's having to, like, the walls of your stomach are like acting on that. Yeah. Right? The musculature of your stomach is like having to try and break that down, and the acid and more acid comes out. So that's the kind of thing that, yeah, you want to intermittent fast from that kind of lifestyle. But fruit is already almost entirely digested in your mouth, and then it just like sort of slips through the whole thing. So the intermittent fasting is not great for raw vegan diet, because there's an issue of trying to get quantity and volume. Yeah. To get enough calories from fruits and vegetables that are low-calorie foods. Yeah. If you're sitting at work and you have half an hour at your work, and you can only eat, you know, 5 bananas in that time, or 4 bananas in that lunch, you know, and then at night maybe you've only got a limited time to eat or whatever, and then you're intermittent fasting on top of that, like, you're really reducing the time for you to actually take in the food that you need to support your lifestyle. So it's not a great idea, especially for beginners. But I've known people that like it for, you know, performance reasons, or they feel like their body's not quite awake in the morning yet, like their digestive system doesn't get going for a while, or whatever they feel. So there's an individual thing on that. But you might have kind of tried these things out more than me, so I'd be interested in hearing what you're going to say on this. But for me, intermittent fasting, it's not really relevant on this diet, because the whole philosophy of intermittent fasting to me seems to be, well, if you're eating bad foods that are hard to digest, then you should take a rest. Yeah. which I understand. Yeah,
no, I totally agree. And you know, I kind of come from understanding that my body knows better than anyone else, you know, like better than any kind of scientific perspective. And I know we've actually talked about this before, and I've seen you talk about this. And there is obviously some break-in period of, you know, getting used to the lifestyle to get to a point where you become a little bit more attuned with your intuition and in tuned with the foods you feel the absolute best with. So you're not just saying, I intuitively need to eat French fries. You know, there's a little bit of a learning curve there. But, for myself, in terms of intermittent fasting, I 100% agree with what you're saying. The number one issue people have on a raw food diet is not getting enough calories, and shortening that window from an intellectual understanding only makes it harder. And
Yes.
in this bigger kind of discussion, I just think that in general, some of the simplest truths are the truth. Like some of the simple things are too simple for people, and they want things that are more fantastic and more exciting and more immediate and more intellectual and backed by some little niche study that says something and proves a point. And whether we're talking about intermittent fasting, like it simply comes down to like eat when you're hungry till you're full, right? Like it can't get any simpler than
Yeah.
that. And if you're intellectualizing and going, nope, I'm not in my window and I gotta wait until then, to me, you're kind of missing the plot.
Yes.
Whether we're talking about detoxification or any of those other things too, it's like if we think that taking XYZ, whether it's, cleanse or herb or this or that, is going to improve upon the body's natural intuitive detoxification pathways, to me, it's kind of like a slap in the face towards the creator. It's like, I know better than you, and I'm going to take the method and the speed and the order of what you're doing and say, no, I'm going to stimulate this and I'm going to focus you on this, and you better do that because that's what I intellectually think is a superior way to detox. I'm smarter than you, and to me, it's absurd, but again, I understand that in some instances there can be a time and place for stimulation, but that's kind of what it is. When you're talking about, can you make the body detox faster? Well, maybe if you stimulate it, use a stimulation, you can enervate it and force it into doing something that you intellectually want. But whether or not that's a benefit or whether that's a detriment is going to be independent on any situation and probably more complex than 99% of people could even come up with. So it's like,
Yeah.
Kind of comes back just into the majesty of the body and supporting it in its own ways without necessarily trying to direct it, because directing it to me is folly.
Yeah, I mean, I totally believe in the intelligence of the body and the fact that the body prioritizes what it has to, deals with what it has to in time, and you need to give yourself time, you give the body time. At the same time, there are things that cannot be dealt with that sometimes we don't have a natural solution or the diet solution, and people try and go down the road of the diet solution for things that unfortunately the diet is not enough for, and that's, I think there was something you were saying there was people want this fantastical, like, cures everything, happens really fast, and there are those miracle stories. There are people that go on this, but it's not really a miracle. It's like if someone's got some terrible disease that is diet related, and then they change their diet and the disease goes away, that's amazing to them because it happened overnight. It's amazing to them because they might have had it for 10 years or 15 years, miserable, painful, then it just goes away. And that is a miracle, but it's also totally logical. Like, it makes sense. It was the diet that was the problem, and we changed the diet, and then the body just went, okay, well, that's gone now, so thank you, and then it wasn't the body. The body wasn't like creating the disease. The body was kind of waiting for you to do that all along. But there are other things, unfortunately, that overwhelms the immune system, that we simply don't have the capacity. So, I mean, there's another point that Doug made, like, if you cut your arm off, your body has the capacity to regrow an arm. It just doesn't really have the energy or it can't really. So there are things that, like, that's the other side of this, of people giving these false assurances to people. Oh, we can heal anything. We can heal anything. I can heal anything. I can help. And I've heard people say these things, and they've got the herbs or the products or whatever. It's totally terrible. I hate that stuff. And I've seen it worst with, for some reason, I've noticed this a couple of times, young women with breast cancer, particularly young women who have developed breast cancer for whatever reason it's happened, and they might be raw or close to raw, and they decide, I'm not going to do the conventional approach, I'm going to do the raw path and get fast and green juice and and they maybe get encouraged by people, oh yeah, you don't need to do any of that. And what people aren't getting in this community is that some diseases, and especially cancer, is not necessarily all about diet. And if it is about diet, it may be too late to actually reverse the problem that's been generated. So, and the funny thing with some cancers is it's nothing to do with your immune system not being strong enough. It's the immune system isn't even recognizing it as a problem.
Yeah.
If it did, it would deal with it. But the immune system, there's actually some research going on with all that kind of COVID stuff. They were trying to see if they could attach stuff to tumors, I think, to make the body recognize and go, wait, this is a problem. We need to destroy this now, right? Because the body isn't doing that. Like, that's the problem with some, I believe, or some, what I've heard with some cancers. So you could get as immune as you like and best diet and everything perfect. If your immune system does not recognize the problem, it's not going to deal with it. And that's why sometimes people need to go a different route. And there's many situations like that. So there's a sophisticated, it's a little bit of a sophisticated message, but people do want magic.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what you're saying. They want miracles.
Yeah.
And
they want to be told, like, I mean, I think we live almost in like a time where conspiracy is getting put up in limelight and people want to grab onto anything that has a kind of conspiracy edge around it. Because again, it's like they've had their mind blown by one thing, like, oh my God, we don't need to cook our food, and oh my God, this and that. And then any other conspiracy after that is like another exciting truth bomb that they really want to take on and hold up and tell the world about, when not everything is a conspiracy.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that, and I totally sympathise with people that they have went, as you're saying, they went down that path where they've realised, oh my God, something that I was told all my life about how I should live, about my diet, about my health, is completely wrong, which is totally true.
Yeah. You're getting a little bit patchy here, Ronnie. You might be getting further from your router. Hopefully Ronnie comes back here pretty quick here. I do know someone mentioned about children, and there are some really great long-term raw vegans that have children and talk about that, like Karen Ramsey and Dr. Doug and Dr. Doug Graham and Rosalind, as well as Dr. Rick and Karen Dina. So great to check out those people if you're thinking about children and raw food. We missed a little bit of what you're saying there, Ronnie. You kind of got a bit patchy.
Yes, sorry, I kind of need to go, Chris. I'm sorry, but
I totally hear you.
Basically, I totally hear that people have had, you said it best, people had their mind blown by, they realise in the kind of diet world, there is a kind of conspiracy. But it's more that, it's what people want to believe. They want to eat the junk food. They want to eat as much as they like. They want to eat the snacks and all that. They don't want to hear a lot of people don't want to hear the healthy diet message. No. So it's not so much that there's a conspiracy. It's just that all the advertising, all the money, everything goes into all the junk food because that's what most people want and what most people eat, and they love the idea they can get away with it. And everyone wants that stuff to be healthy. And I think something Doug said as well was the best diet is actually a diet if you could eat anything you like, anytime you like, and have no consequences. But it doesn't exist, you know. No. So
I'd take that.
There's consequences with our actions. None of us would do this diet if we felt the same on the diet we grew up on. We wouldn't. What would be the point in doing this in a sense, right? So I think that. I just think the message needs to get back to a place of real, strong information that really helps people. Yeah, where it's really thought through properly, where people where it can be shared with anyone and people can really come to grips with it and understand it. But there is a magic to this. There is a magic to it. But the magic is how you're going to feel, how it's going to support your life, how much it's going to make an impact, the people you're going to meet, the places you're going to go. All that wonderful stuff. The magic is not in trying to get some other level of detox, trying to live on less and all that stuff, and trying to get stuff out of your body. You know, this is about an active, fun, full, abundant life, supported by this raw vegan diet on the bottom that just keeps everything going nice. And so. But Chris, I'd love to keep on speaking, but I have
we'll have to do it another time. I
Let's do it.
fully understand.
But I want to say to everyone that Chris has been a big friend, help, but also a major mentor to me, and I learned a lot from Chris from the very start.
Excellent.
And you might not remember, but I used to at the early festivals and stuff. I'd be trying to get around you, asking questions, annoying you a little bit. So Chris is the man, and he is legit one of the real legit people to follow.
Appreciate that, brother. Appreciate that. And never ever have once felt annoyed by you. Always blessed by being in your presence and hanging out and talking, and all the conversations we've had and all you do in the movement as well, man. So I absolutely appreciate you and appreciate you taking your time today. I know you got to go, so we'll wrap this up here.
Yes.
But thank you everyone for joining us. We'll do this again, Ronnie. It's lots of fun, and I encourage everyone to check out Ronnie at Fruity Fridays, UK Fruit Fest, and check out all of his awesome books. And have an awesome night, guys. Thanks so much, Ronnie.
Detox myths from the raw food movement. Learn more with Ronnie Smith. Ooh, don't forget to check out my raw recipes playlist in the top left, the video just for you in the top right, subscribe for more videos in the bottom right, and get your 3 free ebooks in the bottom left. Grab your free raw recipe app, available on iPhone and Android, with over 100 free raw recipes, common fruit and vegetable calorie breakdown, frickin' raw, some food combining chart, shopping cart function, and so much more.